Hello everyone, it's Blair of Chaos Costumes again, here to teach you a new thing. Today's lesson is going to be something fun, something adorable, something cute, something that can be a desk pet. So without further ado, let's go.
So if you remember last week, I taught you how to scan your head with your Apple device and swing it into Nomad. This time we're going to work on a larger project to push your skills. This project will be named Sploot, as determined in my live streams. I had some questions about numerical sizing with the gizmo. You want to make sure numerical input is selected. And then you can resize your object either with the big orange circle or this orange bar here. So we're going to make Sploot 70 millimeters big. And to zoom out quickly, you can click on the little home button in the corner here. Now we can clone Sploot's shapes to build out his head, and we'll elongate his body and shrink his head a little bit. I want to give Sploot a tail, so we're going to use a tube. We'll select this tube option here to drag it out and bend it around as we need. You see here what's really frustrating? The snapping is turned on. I don't know why it's useful, but you can toggle it off up here. I want to turn on B-spline just so the curvature of the tail is a little softer. I want to taper his tail, so I select the radius so I can control one point individually. I want his tail to look a little more dynamic, so I'll hit the radius option again and modify the nodes one at a time. I'm going to increase the division on this tube to match the spheres. And now that I'm happy with it, let's push and pull his body around to get a basic shape that we want. I'm noticing here the tail isn't quite center, so I'll fix that real quick. Let's give this boy some shoulders. Now let's push and pull his head around and get a better silhouette. I'm just using the move tool real big. Now that I'm happy with Sploot's body, let's select everything with the marquee and voxel merge them together. Now we can go in with the smooth tool and smooth out these transitions. You can increase the intensity of the smooth tool far past 100%. That makes it so it's a lot more effective. Now I'm going to give Sploot some eyeballs. We'll use the insert tool. Perfect. Just like that. But seriously, let's make these eyes smaller and tuck them in. And I'll make his eyes a little flatter too, just so they're not so bulbous. Now that I'm happy with the placement of the eyes, let's give him some facial features. I'll use the clay to do this. Just carving in some eyelids. And let's give him a cute little smile. Don't get too worried about the lumpiness of the clay tool. We'll smooth that down later. So right now I'm building out the top lip and then swinging around to the bottom lip and leaving that valley for his inner mouth. Now we can go in and smooth out all those lumps and bumps and make it cohesive. You want to turn down the intensity of the smooth so it doesn't reduce all of your detail. I want to increase the definition of the inside of his lips, so I'm going to go in here with the clay tool and subtract real small. This little boy needs some nose holes, so let's carve in some nose holes with the layer tool and subtract. Let that boy breathe! And then turn down the intensity of the smooth real low and smooth out those nostrils a smidge. I want to add little bumps around his lips, and I'll do that with the clay tool. And smooth that down just a little bit to blend it in. Now that I'm happy with his lips, let's give him little tummy ridges with a wide clay tool and a low intensity. And to refine these gaps, what I'll use is the pinch tool and paint in between these areas. And I'll just tuck them in together. And I'll pinch his mouth closed a little bit while I'm here. Then I'll smooth out these edges from his tummy scales. Now that I'm happy with his silly little body, let's give him some legs. So I'm going to insert a tube for his little stompers. And push it and pull it around until I'm happy with it. Now his legs look really thin. He forgot leg day, so let's make it bigger with the radius. And I'll tuck his hip in so it'll be easier to smooth down. Right now he looks like he's wearing bell bottoms, so let's shrink one side of the tube by clicking on the radius. I want his legs to be a little bit more dynamic, so let's turn on the profile and make them more oblong. Right now it's not correct, so I will toggle the twist and twist his leg where I actually want it. And we'll increase the division so that it matches the rest of the body's topology. Now that I'm happy with his back leg, let's make the front leg. So if you have a tube selected and draw another tube, it'll draw under the same profile. So you don't have to do it again if you don't want to. And then to get his arm twisted right, we will have two nodes to adjust the twist. And now that I'm looking at it, his leg is enormously tall, so let's shorten that. Could you imagine him standing up with these big noodly legs? And his arm is a little too oblong. Let's zoom out on this profile and make it a little bit more round. I'm realizing Sploot needs a little bit of a snoot, so I'll pull that out a little bit and flatten his head. Alright, back to the arms. I'm going to toggle the symmetry on these guys, so now we have 4 limbs instead of 2. And I'll insert a sphere for his palms. I want to change the pivot to a line, so when I shrink his palms, it's flat to what would be the ground. Now I want to give this boy some fingies, so let's add a tube. And I'll make it a little bit bigger, and then toggle the radius to taper it. I want his fingers to be a little bit more dynamic, so I'll add another node, and toggle the radius one more time. I want to increase the division of this to match the geometry of everything else, and then we'll clone it over to make more fingies. We'll toggle the middle one again, and clone it to the left. Now Sploot has 3 toes, or fingies. Now that we're happy with this appendage, let's select all of it and join it together. That way we don't have to use our brains to make the back feet. But first, let's smooth everything together. I'm just rounding out the tip of this cone here. And now we get to do the fun part of cloning his feetsies. And connecting the leg to the feet. I want to make his feet a little bit narrower, so I'm just pushing them in with the move tool. Now that we're happy with Sploot, let's connect all of the mirrors together before we glue all of him together. So each mirror sub-menu you want to join. And so we'll go ahead and select all of him but his eyes, and voxel remesh him together. Now we can start smoothing all these shapes together. Now that we have this cute little snake frog boy, let's give him cute little details. I think he needs a little succulent hat. What about you? I think it'll be quite adorable. So let's hide Sploot and his eyes and add a new sphere. The sphere will be our leaf. So we'll drag it out and make it thin. Validate it and use the move tool to pinch the tip and make it more concave. Now that we got a generic leaf shape, let's use the radial repeater to make a plant. So what you'll do is you'll select the shape again, and you can move it around. This is a really easy way to make a flower, or succulent as we're trying to do. Now that I have the first layer, what I'm going to do is select the radial repeater and the shape, and select clone. And then toggle the sphere and push and pull it around with the gizmo. Then we'll select the radial repeater one more time and increase the division to make the second layer of the flower, or succulent, leaves, plant, you know what I mean. Once again, we'll repeat that process where we select both layers and clone it. Increase the division of the next layer and move around the individual shapes as you please to get it just right. You can rotate it a little bit more open. I don't like how all these petals are lining up though, so I'm going to select the radial repeater and rotate it just a smidge, just so it looks a little bit more organic. Then I'll shrink these inner petals a little bit to make it look a little bit more natural. I want to make sure everything's touching so there's no weird voids. Now we can select all of these things of our new plant and show Sploot again and place it where we want it, which is clearly on his head. Cute little guy. I want to tilt it forward a little bit, push it and pull it around. Maybe make it a little flatter. Now I think his tail is missing something. I think it needs a little succulent. So let's take all of this that we just made and clone it one more time. Now we can pull it back here and resize it as we need. Now I want to make these petals smaller individually. I want to resize this together, but the gizmo is off to the side, so I'm going to try to put it in the center before I start doing that. Now I can resize it. This will print very fragilely, so let's make each petal a little thicker. Now that I'm happy with both plants on his body, let's make sure we select only the two layers that are under each other, the radial repeater and the sphere, and join them. Deselect, select the two layers under each other, and deselect. What this will do is that when you join everything together, it won't have a radial repeater where it's not supposed to be. Now we can glue everything together, and I'll just use the select tool to make everything easier and join that. Same with his head plant. Now I can resize his tail all together. I want to make sure this builds up at a good 45-degree angle, so I'm just using the move tool to push and pull things around. I think he's missing something, and I think it's more leaves. So let's make another leaf sphere and do the same thing we did with the succulent leaves. So we'll elongate it and shrink it. Give it the Ozempic special and make it skinnier, and validate it. That's what it wanted all this time, to be validated. And I'll pinch the tip. But I really want to make this a little different, so I'm going to go in with a crease tool and add a nice little spine to this sleeve. I'll just smooth that out. And I want to use the move tool to make it concave, but and the crease tool traveled too close to the sun. You can toggle front facing vertex only to fix this, but this isn't too bad. So I'll just smooth it out. Now I can make it concave, just pushing with the move tool. Now that we got this leafy boy, let's show everything else and move that leaf around to where we want it. Now I can just clone this all the way down his back and rotate as needed. I think he needs a little crest, so let's duplicate this leaf off to the side and use the mirror feature to build one on the other side. And then make sure the symmetry is toggled if you want to modify these without rotating them weird. Now to cut off all the little bits that are sticking out and a little too far, what I'm going to do is select all of these little spikes that we just did carefully with the select tool. And then I'll join them to clean it up. Then we'll use the X-ray to see what we're doing and trim out that excess geometry. Now you can call this sculpture done, but if you want to take your sculpture to the next level, we can add alpha stamps. So let's swing into Procreate and make our own alpha stamp for scales. Let's change the background color to black. Then we're going to turn on the symmetry feature in Procreate. And using the technical pen, we'll draw our first scale. Now we'll go in with a soft brush and lower intensity or opacity and kind of make a gradient. And that will be the first scale. Then we can duplicate it and push it off 45 degrees to the side. And then we'll do that again, duplicate it, and then push this one off. You see where we're going here? Technically you can use a trio, but I want to cover more ground. So I'll duplicate one and hide it, and then take those three and combine them. Then I can duplicate the trio and take that trio and push it down. I'm going to select all of these items and resize them so I have more space to work. And then I'll duplicate the trio of scales again and add it on over here. I want to duplicate this individual scale and start filling out the rest of this shape. Ideally, I want these scales to interlock. Now we can merge all of these together and use the Gaussian blur and blur it just a little bit so it's not as harsh. Now we can make it bigger to fill up the tile. And export it, saving it as a PNG. Now let's swing back into Nomad and use that stamp we just made. So we'll select it down here and import our picture that we just made. Start stamping. You can be a perfectionist about interlocking them, but we just want to get the gist. See in the middle here, you don't want it to overlap, so we'll turn off the symmetry and work on the middle. And while we're here, go down the middle of the entire model. And then toggle symmetry back on and fill out the rest of his body. You want to make sure front-facing vertex only is toggled when you're doing this. I see that the stamp kind of got weird over here, so you can fix that by smoothing it before you stamp on top of it. Our cute little Sploot has all these details. Let's make him this cute little salmon color. His eye is a nice little void color of shiny black. His head flower is nice little dusty green. Same with his back spine leaf things. And paint all to his butt flower. Tail succulent. Now what you can do is export this as an OBJ. It will be read by the multicolor printer slicer, so you don't have to paint it in Bamboo Studio or Orca Slicer. But if you want to render it, you want to make sure you paint cleanly if you do that. So just with harsh lines, painting certain sections, and then saving as an OBJ, and it will automatically read it. I want to make sure front-facing vertex is turned on when I'm painting like this, just so the paint isn't wrapping around his digits. Now as he's ready to send to a multicolor printer, but let's turn down the opacity and give him some gradients if you just wanted to render this. I think the top of him needs a nice little rosy red. And then his little succulent, I think the little leaves need red tips. So right now, I don't want the front-facing vertex toggled on. Let's turn that off. And then I could just paint the tips of his little succulent pretty easily. You can use the eyedropper to go back to colors if you want. And I'll get rid of his little bald patch here. I'll go back with the red and then paint the tips of his spine leaves. And then his little tail succulent obviously needs some love. Just going back and forth with the green and red just to clean it up a bit. Now cute little Sploot is done. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy. But if you want to 3D print him, he has to be all together. So we'll join him. And he's far too many vertices, so let's decimate him, turning off the little triforce. And keep going until you have a nice balance of a small file but still keeping your detail. Let's rename this layer to his government name as Sploot. Now he's ready for slicing. So last time we sliced the mimic, but let's start with a new project. I have some rainbow filament in my AMS, so I'm going to make sure to change what I put in there in that slot. Obviously there's no rainbow option, so I'll just select turquoise. And generic silk. Now I can prepare him and import Sploot. That's our boy. Let's repair him. I will say that repairing will destroy the colors you've painted sometimes, most of the time. So you don't have to repair it as long as it slices correctly. So now that we fixed our boy, let's push him down a little bit. I just want him to print flat on the print bed. If you highlight him, you can see where everything is touching. And the bright red, it's where it's tucked into the build plate, but I don't want it to build support all the way under these petals. So let's mask that off by right-clicking. Like, support here really isn't necessary. I think he's ready to slice. It's pretty easy. So now that the supports look like nothing is building up where it's not supposed to, let's print this plate. Make sure you have the right color selected if you have the AMS. Time to send it.
Isn't he so cute? I just want to squish him. The cuteness aggression was off the charts with this creation. I love him so much. And I hope you like him too, and you had fun making him or watching me make him. If you have any suggestions of what you want to see, please leave a comment down below. If you like what I do, please hit the like button. And if you really like what I do, please subscribe. It helps me immensely, and I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for helping me with this journey. Without you guys, this wouldn't be anything. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you guys next week.